Sir James Matthew Barrie, 1st Baronet, May 9, 1860 through June 19, 1937, more commonly known as J. M. Barrie, was a Scottish author and dramatist. He is best remembered for creating Peter Pan, the boy who refused to grow up, whom he based on his friends Llewellyn Davies' boys. J. M. Barrie is known for his playwrights. Some of his works included Little White Bird, Margaret Ogilvy, and Annan, a play. He is also credited with popularizing the name Wendy, which was very uncommon before he gave it to the heroine of Peter Pan, a novel he wrote based on the inspiration of the Davies boys. He then made it into a theatrical play, and then later Peter Pan was discovered. Soon enough, books were being sold, and Peter Pan became famous worldwide. Convergence went from stage play to radio, a film in Disney, TV, comics, books, DVDs, and also video games. Finding Neverland was a story based on true events of Barrie's life with the Davies boys. The film was made as to how the famous Peter Pan novel was inspired by his writing of the Davies boys. Barrie meets Michael, George, Jack, and Peter, along with his mom Sylvia Davies, in Kensington Park. Her husband has been deceased from cancer of the jaw. He's been deceased with 4 boys with no income to speak of. Since the boys' father passed away, Peter has been very distant from others and living life out of disbelief and denial. Peter doesn't believe in faith or imagination. As Barrie gets closer to the family by entertaining, Peter becomes more curious about Barrie's writing. As an inspiring writer himself, he walks in the park and sees Barrie and asks what he was writing about. He then tells him that he was just writing and gathering thoughts. As Barrie and the 4 boys make plays in their backyard, Peter starts to open up by getting involved, but yells at Barrie, "You're not my father." Peter has been a different boy since his father died. He took much of the death of his father and thought he had to grow up fast. Mr. Barrie's wife invites the 4 boys, Sylvia, and Sylvia's mother to dinner. As they have dinner, Barrie's wife, Mary, thinks of Barrie as a social disaster, while Sylvia's mom thinks of him as a grown man playing with kids, a painful sight to see. Although Barrie and Sylvia think nothing of it and only see each other as friends in good company with the boys, it seems as though Barrie's wife, Mary, and Sylvia's mom are by far cynical of what is going on. While the 2 of them think of the worst, Barrie and Sylvia think that it's a blessing. Barrie's goal in playing with the kids is to give them hope and an imagination. Peter then becomes curious of what he writes about when he approaches him while Barrie is working. He then asks again what he was writing about. He then replies with, "I'm just writing notes. I don't usually write until I sit down and read my notes." As he continues to spend more time with Sylvia and her kids, he then starts to see flashes of the story in his mind, flashes of adventure and imagination, flashes of wickedness. Barrie then gets Peter a journal so that he can start being a writer and tells him to write about anything that you can imagine and make it come to life. Barrie starts to write about the adventures of the Davy brothers and asks Peter's permission to use his name in one of the characters. Peter then replies, "Yes, that's fine." As Barrie continues to finish the story, he gets more ideas for the story as he spends more time with Sylvia and the kids. He then starts to finish the script and calls it Peter Pan. Barrie's friend confronts him and asks him his reasoning behind the kids. Many people started talking about your motives behind playing with the kids. He then says, "The thing with society is that people watch and people talk. They wait for you to mess up and they will look for ways to drag you down." Barrie then replies, "You find a glimmer of happiness in this world. There is always someone who wants to destroy it." The story unfolds with Sylvia getting sick. Meanwhile, Sylvia's mom wants Barrie out of her family's life, and Barrie's wife was shamelessly looking into his journal to find out any love notes he's been writing down. Fortunately, she finds nothing in his journal but experiences Neverland. Now, Barrie's trust has been broken and betrayed. Aside from the betrayal of trust, Barrie's wife had an affair, which eventually ended their marriage. Sylvia was diagnosed with an inoperable cancer in her chest. She was close to her end of her life. Because of this, she was not able to attend the play of Peter Pan. Peter attended the play, which turned out to be a hit. Later, Barrie set up a play at Sylvia's home for her to see. Sylvia and her sons watched Peter Pan, and it was the first time she saw Neverland. Sylvia then passes away, leaving her mom and Mr. Barrie custody over the kids. Barrie supported the kids monetarily and emotionally, was involved in the upbringing of the kids. He was a guardian to the boys in his own right.